Good morning, everyone, and welcome to What's Your Story, where we interview various professionals about the journey that they took to their current careers. I'm Jessica. Sorry for the late timing here today. I'm just dealing with some tech difficulties. It happens. Today, though, we will be speaking with Dwayne Peterson. Dwayne is the Assistant Director for Employer Development at the University of Florida's Career Resource Center, and he's here with us now. Hi, Dwayne.
Hi, Jessica. I'm
How are
so
you doing
excited to be
today?
here.
Good. We're really excited to have you, and happy early 4th of July. It's my Friday. I think it's your Friday too, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and I'm counting down the hours. I'm so ready to start the 4th of July weekend.
We are so, so close, and I hope it's everyone out there is Friday as well. So happy holiday, everyone. And Dwayne, today we're just going to be talking to you a little bit to let our viewers know what your story is. What was the journey that you took to your career and how it aligned with what you went through in college. So why don't you first tell us a little bit about your role and what you do here at the CRC?
Mhm. So I'm as Assistant Director for Employer Development. What my job really is to onboard new employers who can basically bring more employment connections for our students and alumni. So what I'm trying to do is find those strategic maybe employers that are not working with us based on trends or based on different industries, or just maybe employers that we know are doing some hiring but are not considering UF candidates. And so my role is really to go out and find those employers and then convince them why the University of Florida is the best place for them to recruit.
Absolutely. I personally think you have one of the most exciting jobs here. You know, we definitely work with career development for our students, and it's important to develop our employers too. And I think that's really what makes us a really nice, well-rounded center. So you must love what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my parts of my role is to serve as a consultant for our employers. So to really provide employers with the best practices and the best strategies when they're on our campus or trying to recruit our students. You know, and only a small percentage of our employers actually come to campus. Many of our employers stay right where they are, but they can have just as great as results as the ones who actually come to campus. And so my role is to help them meet their goals and ultimately hire our students.
Oh, well, that's awesome, and you definitely do a great job with what you do. So why don't you, Dwayne, tell us a little bit about your educational background?
Okay, so I went to the University of South Florida in Tampa Bay, and so I'm a first-generation college student, so nobody in my family had ever gone to college before, and I was actually only the first person outside of my mother in my family to graduate from high school. So you got to understand, in my family, education wasn't something that was seen as valuable, and so for me, it was always what I was good at. I was good at being a student, and so I followed some friends to the University of South Florida. I did not do like an official college search or anything like that. And so I was lucky enough to have friends that were older than me. So I followed them to the University of South Florida. And I was very determined to be a professional singer. I wanted to be, actually wanted to sing opera for my career.
We're gonna have
And
to have you sing at the next staff meeting then.
yeah, no, I don't sing much anymore, but back then it was all I could think about. I dreamed about music every day, and I was a very shy person, believe it or not, and so music was the only thing that I felt like I did fairly well, and I wanted to keep doing it. And so I actually auditioned, and I didn't get in to the music department the first time, so I ended up having to wait a year. During that year, I spent money on coaching and extra lessons, and so as a sophomore, I actually got accepted to the School of Music. I built a relationship with a wonderful voice teacher named Dr. Kay Lowe, who kind of took me under her wing. She knew there was something. I think she thought there was something special about me. And so anyway, she ended up being a mentor for me and taking me into her voice studio, and then I was able to study with her for 3 years. And music was my passion. That's what I wanted to do, and so I ended up finishing my degree in music. And then I realized that being an opera singer nowadays is very difficult. And so I ended up going and getting a master's degree in college student personnel, which is an education degree designed to work specifically with college students to be able to help them in the variety of things that they do outside the classroom. So whether that's on-campus housing, academic advising, career services falls under that. So I'm kind of trained to do a wide range of jobs outside on the university campus outside the classroom. So I'm not a professor per se, but I certainly play an important role in educating students.
See, and this is why I love hosting these talks, because I just learned so much about you. I'm also a first-generation student, and I never would have known that you had a music background, so that is amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. That's awesome. So you said you switched after your undergrad to go sort of the education direction. Was there
Mhm.
something that you felt inside of yourself or something that happened that made you want to do that?
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting story. So when you become a junior or a senior in as a music major, your voice professors. You have a very close relationship with your professors in a music program, and I was starting to notice that professors weren't really taking an interest in me, except for my main voice teacher, and I had a theory teacher who also really took an interest. But for the most part, teachers they weren't interested in me. They were more interested in some of the other students that had more talent than me. And I'm not saying that as sort of something negative about myself. It was just the truth. When I looked around at the people who were going to make it in music, I didn't have the talent when I stood up next to them. I was coming from way too far behind. I mean, most people when they study music have been studying since they were like, out of the womb practically. And so for me, I had only started, basically when I got to college was the first time I had really started to sing. And I came a long way in those 3 years, but I knew in the long run I wasn't going to be able to sing opera the way I wanted to. But I was determined. If you had told me then that I wasn't going to be an opera singer, I would have laughed in your face and said, I will do whatever I want to do, because I'm kind of like that.
That's a great spirit to have.
Yeah. I'm kind of stubborn when I get set in what I want to do, and I can't be told any differently. But what started to happen as a senior is I started to really did not like singing anymore. I was starting to burn out. I was starting to feel like I didn't want to practice as much as I had before. And what happened is I started to think about what it would mean for me to get into a graduate program. So if I was going to pursue singing, I knew I needed more training. I would have to go on to graduate school or get into a music conservatory. In order to do that, I had to have additional vocal support. So I ended up hiring a voice coach. And so in addition to my voice teacher, I had a voice coach who I paid on the side. Remember, I'm a first-generation college student, so I didn't have a lot of money, but I worked.
Or really be furthermore examples to follow. You did this all on your own, which is great.
Yeah. I worked 2 jobs to be able to afford an extra voice. It was $25 an hour to have a voice coach. Wow. And luckily he was a grad student. It would have cost a lot more had he not been a grad student. But anyway, so we were working together, and I was having this moment where there was this particular vocal passage that I just was having a hard time with. And when I reached those moments where I didn't know how to solve the problem, I oftentimes got a little upset. And so I started to get upset.
I'm sure.
Yeah, that's natural. And so he said to me, just never forget this moment as long as I live. His name was Scott. And Scott said to me, he said, Dwayne, are you happy with this? And I said, I don't know. And he said, you don't seem very happy. And I said, I just think I need to get through this. I just need to get through this, through my schooling so that I can get to my goal. Like when I'm an opera singer, I'm going to be happy. I just know if I'm an opera singer, I'm going to be happy. I just have to get through this stuff right now. And he said, if you can't enjoy your journey, you're going to have a hard time enjoying your destination.
Very true.
And I remember just looking at him thinking, oh my God, he is absolutely right. And then in my mind I thought, what kind of life would it be if every minute I'm spending trying to get to this destination I think I want to be is absolutely miserable? Like, what kind of life would that be? And I remember that was kind of the turning point for me and saying, music probably is not going to work out for me professionally, and I need to kind of change directions.
Right.
And so for me, the only thing
in that sense too, to have that moment of realization, because not everyone gets that, and especially to have one that was so profound that you just knew, it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, wherever he is in the world, I hope he's watching today's broadcast, because he completely changed my life. Shortly after I graduated, I never saw him again, but I think about him on a regular basis because he had such an impact. And so when I graduated from college, I had a music degree, and I knew I wasn't going to be a professional musician, and I didn't really like music education so much, although I did like the idea of helping people. And so outside of being a musician, I was also very, very active on a college campus. I had joined a fraternity. I was an RA, a resident assistant in on-campus housing. I had done student groups. I went on alternative spring break. So I'd done like all of these leadership activities outside the classroom. And to be honest with you, when I said, okay, what are things that I like doing outside of music? And for me, it was all of those things outside the classroom. And so I had an advisor as a senior say, you can do this for a living, right? You can get paid to work with students outside the classroom forever. Yeah, and help people. And I thought, really? And so I didn't really believe him at first. So he said, how about I hire you for a year to work for me after graduation? Come work for me. I'll just give you a job as a receptionist, but what I'll do is I'll mentor you. I'll get you connected to some people in the field, in the profession, and then over the course of the year, you decide if this is what you want to do. And so that's how I got into higher education.
Wow. Your story is so diverse and is the perfect example that the path you took in college doesn't always going to show where you're going to end up very transparently. So that's amazing. And
Absolutely.
you're great at what you do, and I know just hearing you speak, even yesterday at our meeting, just talking about being that consultant and being there for our students and our employers, and you're in the right place. It definitely sounds like, Dwayne.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I'm really happy to have learned so much about you in a short time. Do you have a tip, maybe, for students who are either on their career path or going to be heading on it soon?
Yeah. So outside of my job as employer development here in the CRC, I also serve as a career development facilitator. So before I came to work with primarily employers, I worked with students, and primarily I worked with my own private clients outside the university. So I've worked with a wide range of professionals who, some of them are stuck in their current job, some haven't gone to college, some of them have a lot of education but don't know how to take the next step. And so one of the things I've noticed as a trend, whether I'm working with a college student or I'm working with a seasoned professional, is that we have a tendency as Americans to undersell ourselves. You know, we have all these great experiences and things that we think are maybe not valuable, and we have a tendency to not want to talk about ourselves. And so I look at a lot of resumes of people who I know have a lot of experiences and make a big impact in the organizations that they've joined, but for some reason they don't sell it. They don't share their experiences the way that they should. And sometimes they even write off experiences and say, oh, well, that wasn't really that important. And then when you start learning more about them, you think, oh my gosh, you just made a huge impact. And so part of my kind of exciting about my job is I get to kind of inspire people to think differently about their experiences. So my tip would be for students is to don't undersell yourself. If you are involved in a student organization, if you are even if you're just coordinating an event here or there, you're on an intramural team, you are I don't know, a participant in the homecoming committee, you're an RA, whatever it might be, don't undersell yourself. Those are all valuable experiences, and just because you're not receiving a paycheck for them doesn't mean that they're not going to be the key that's going to help you reach the next step in your career.
Absolutely, and even me being a student and just from hearing other students, it's important to talk about those interests and the experiences that you have had, because that's what's really going to make you get excited to talk about the future and really figure out where you're supposed to be. So it all kind of comes together in the end anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you're really, I mean, employers just want to see what skills you bring to the table. They don't care if you were paid for those skills or not. And so, if you have volunteer experiences, like I met a student once that was a volunteer on an animal shelter, a very involved volunteer, been there for several years, completely missing from his resume. And I thought, tell me a little bit more about experience. And when he started talking about it, he had done so many things and developed so many skill sets that were very valuable in the employment market. And so I was able to help him package that on his resume so that he could ultimately be more competitive in the job market.
Yeah, that's great. Paid or not, the only way to learn is if you do it. And I say too that no one's going to toot your own horn. You have to toot it yourself. So, well, we do have a couple of questions actually from our viewers, Dwayne. So if we could just ask you a few more things.
Okay, awesome.
Natalia would like to know: do you feel like your passion for the arts translates into your current position?
Oh my gosh, yes. So not so much. So it's funny when I work with when I work with students and they say to me, I ask them to tell me what they think my major is, and sometimes they usually say things like psychology, education. And when I tell them I have a music degree, they often are very shocked by that. And they say, oh well, I guess you're not using your degree. And I said, actually, that's not true. I use my degree every single day in everything I do. And it's not because I'm out singing an aria in front of everybody.
Although I'm sure a lot of people would enjoy it.
Right. It's actually because of the way I think. I believe that being a musician has helped me to develop theoretical frameworks, has helped me to learn to interpret body language, written language. It has helped me to think creatively about problems.
That's what I was going to say. You probably have that creative aspect too, as far as when working with the employers for development and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, problems require creative thinking. I mean, there's what I've learned to believe is most problems don't have a clear cookie-cutter answer to them. They're usually very gray, and I find that that's where I really thrive. And musicians, that's exactly what we do. We get a piece of paper that's been around since, I don't know, before the Stone Age, and we have to bring life to that paper, and that's a problem. That requires creative solutions. And so I think what I've been able to do is really create a transferable skill by taking that I learned from singing old arias to now everyday real life global problems that I face in my current job.
Absolutely. You always learn skill sets regardless of what you were taught. So glad you can transfer them here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great. Well, we actually have one last question, and this is from Aliette, and she would like to know, how did you transition from your musical aspiration to helping students? So I guess in a way, how did you take those skills and apply them with students?
Yeah, that's such a good question. For me, I think, how do I say this? I think it was that my degree in music didn't match what I ultimately ended up doing in my career, and I find that that really helps me build relationships with students because I think just like most students, when I was in college, I believed that major equals career, and that to get a job as a musician I had to have a degree in music. It's the same thing that a lot of my students work with. I want to be an engineer, I need a degree in engineering. I want to be a nurse, so I get a degree in nursing. But the truth is that except for the examples I just listed, there are very, very few majors that equal career. Most of them, even majors that you think do equal career, like nursing, has hundreds of jobs that you can end up doing with a nursing degree. You're not always just a registered nurse when you get a degree in nursing. And so I think that that is what's able to help me build connections with students.
Yeah, it makes
Because
it relatable to them in a way because they're
absolutely,
thinking right now. So
absolutely, because I'm able to help them understand that it's not so much about the degree, what you chose to study, it's how you approach that study. What did you learn as you're going through that study? So if you're passionate about learning about psychology, the same way that I was passionate about learning about music, then taking it a step further and saying, okay, through the art of studying, or through the process of studying psychology, what did I gain? Did I learn to write? Did I learn to read? Did I learn to communicate? Those are all skills that employers are looking for. So at the end of the day, I think that that's how I'm able to make that transition from being someone who studied music to now someone who helps college students.
that's great, and I couldn't agree more. It's just like we were talking about with the experiences, that's what's really going to feel like you've been put in the right direction of what you love. And just like going back to when you said you realized you weren't as happy when you were studying your music and didn't know where to go after that, happiness is a big key in that as well. So
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to love what you do. You absolutely have to love what you do. But it's not something that people figure out right away.
right,
So
totally.
you have to you have to give yourself time to explore and be open to learning new things. I'm very passionate about careers. I'm always learning about new jobs and new professions, and that's why I kind of like my job as employer development, because employers bring me a wide range of opportunities, and I get to learn about them. And I have to be honest with you, I still think in my mind, maybe there's something else for me. Maybe there's something else out there for me. And so I think that that's how you really find your passion, is by being open to other possibilities.
Definitely being open-minded, and the journey doesn't have to end, right?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Dwayne. You have been a complete wealth of knowledge and information, and I know all of our viewers have definitely enjoyed talking to you. You had a very interesting background, so thank you for sharing, and thank you for joining us on the show today. I really enjoyed having you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jessica. It was a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm happy to hear it. We hope everyone has a great, great holiday. Happy 4th of July and a fabulous long weekend. And we will see you all next Thursday at 11:30 a.m. for What's Your Story. Have a good weekend, everybody.